Hey, it's Liz from West Star Tarot, and here we are at Major Arcana 18. So it's October 21st, so we're getting towards the last third of October, and we started this wonderful process in January with the Fool, and now here we have reached the moon. And the moon is, to me, one of my favorite cards in the tarot deck. And I also believe in many cases it is one of the most misunderstood or misinterpreted. And when I first started learning tarot, and I first started to, get into learning the meanings of the cards, I remember coming across what Waite said about the moon. Not so much, I mean, maybe Crowley says the same thing, but I was more starting to learn on Waite. And some other, I would look in your kind of standard tarot books, textbooks and meaning books back in the day. So we're talking the 80s. And I remember reading, and so many times I read that the moon card was about treachery, deceit, hidden meanings, having to be cautious because something was hidden and not clear, and all kinds of really sort of negative associations. And then I'd read the sun. Oh, and the moon was representative of the feminine. And then I'd read the sun. Joy, success, happiness, male. And I thought, wait a minute, the card that represents the feminine is deceit and treachery and hidden meaning. And the card that represents the masculine is joy, success. What? No way. Plus, as a witch, is that how, as witches, I should say, because some of you are and some of you aren't, who are participating in Masha's project. But as a witch, that's not how I look at the moon at all. To me, the moon represents the divine feminine, the sacred feminine. When I look up in the sky and I see the moon, for me it is a direct connection from her to the goddess. She is the goddess. She is the goddess as much as Gaia is the goddess. And so I also look at her and see cycles, which are very feminine in terms of waxing and waning, and literally our menstrual cycles. Back in the day, before electricity, before the Industrial Revolution, before cities and there was a way to keep lights on at night, all women menstruated together in direct relationship to the moon. So the full moon was ovulation, and then the dark moon was menstruation. And all of us menstruated on that lunar cycle. And of course, that has changed with technology. But the moon to me is sacred. And I have a deep love and affection for not only the moon, but the moon card. And so I've pulled out several, and I guess let me start with this one. This is from Tarot of the Great Outdoors. Have you ever seen the moon look that big? I have. Coming up over the ocean around this time of year, because this is when we seem to see the biggest moons, the supermoons. This is from, let's see, this is, so this deck, the major arcana cards are all from national parks across the United States. So the moon is similar to the sun in that it is inviting you to step outside, but in this case after dark. Craters of the Moon National Monument and Preserve in Idaho is world-renowned not only for the volcanic rock and lava tubes, but also for its out-of-this-world night sky. The Milky Way is a star player in this nighttime show, but the moon card can be the real diva who steals the stage. The moon used to be the only source of nighttime light for humans. Today, most of us are totally dependent on artificial light. This has extended the hours we can be active, but with this, we have lost the art of being in tune with the cycles of the moon and the seasons. And so that is what I was alluding to earlier when I was talking about how all women used to menstruate and be in menstrual cycles with the moon. Next up is another favorite deck of mine. This is Tarot de Saint Croix by Lisa de Saint Croix. What a beautiful card that is. And we can see in the sky a crescent moon, but then down below we see a full moon. And Lisa says, as the moon waxes and wanes, so do our feelings. If we dive deep into the emotions, we will find a way through. So the moon, I know myself, I definitely don't sleep as well during full moons. I definitely am affected by the brightness and the energy of the full moon. This is from Superlunaris. And it is very much a Rider-Waite-Smith, but I chose it because I feel like the moon is just so beautiful. And look at the color of that water. It's just gorgeous. This is from the Wildwood Tarot. And it's called The Moon on Water. And of course, I live near the ocean. And so for me, there's nothing like going out to the water, the beach at night, whenever there's a moon out, and you can see it shining across the ocean. It's just epically beautiful, especially a full moon. This, I feel like, is so different from all the rest of the cards in this deck. Can you guess what this deck is? It's The Fifth Spirit by Charlie Claire Burgess. And I feel like the artwork on this card is really different from, like I said, the rest of the deck. It's beautiful. And here we see this beautiful being being drawn outside by the sacred feminine, the bright full moon in the forest. Gorgeous. This one practically makes me want to cry in a good way. This is the Moon card by Christy C. Rode from Next World. Look at that being's face. Look at their face. And how enthralled they are by the full moon, enraptured by the divinity of the full moon. Absolutely beautiful. And we do have our little nods here to the dog and the crab. I mean, it's a lobster, but I think it's supposed to be a crab because it's supposed to represent Cancer, yeah? I don't know. Here is one of my all-time favorite. It's so strikingly beautiful. I would love to have a print of this to hang up in on my wall. Can you see the grandmother? The full moon and the beautiful ocean inlet. This is Ancestral Path by Julia Kuchia-Watt. And you see grandmother is weaving by the light of the full moon. It's beautiful. Now, here we have from Robert M. Place's Vampire Tarot, the Moon card. And he talks about this person, well, this goddess on this card is Diana. And he talks about, in his guidebook, about Diana and how the moon card is related to Diana and what she stands for and represents, and Dianic witchcraft. Oh no, sorry, jumping ahead. That's not who says that. It's Julia Jeffrey who says that, which is this card. Robert M. Place does relate the moon to Diana, and this is representing Diana. This is called The Moon Child. This is from Witch Sister by Julia Jeffrey. So this is a little bit of a different representation of the moon. And here's, this guidebook has the beautiful large size representations of the cards. So Moonchild. The moon holds a central place in the heart of anyone with an interest in magic. Her symbolic and practical importance in witchcraft cannot be overstated. Many goddesses from many different cultures all over the world are associated with the moon. In witchcraft, perhaps the best-known deity associated with the moon is the Greek goddess Artemis and her Roman counterpart Diana. There are shrines around Britain consecrated to local moon goddesses said to be linked to Diana, who gives her name to the modern tradition of Dianic witchcraft. So it's Julia that says that, not Robert M. Place. Celtic moon goddesses such as Rhiannon and Arian Rod share characteristics with Artemis and Diana, including protection of women and of all that is wild and untamed. Our moonchild here, I should be holding them up, is not quite the same as the moon card found in more traditional tarot decks, which is generally a very mixed blessing. The moonchild shines from within. She is like a pearl, beautifully whole and self-contained. She is at one with the great Mother Moon and comes to us as a little child, beautiful, delicate, full of immeasurable potential. So that's how I like to look at the moon card. And then last but not least is, I think, my top favorite moon card. And this is the moon card from the Gaian Tarot by Joanna Powell Colbert. And in the guidebook, she says, constant, faithful changes. La Luna Bella, a woman invokes the energies of the full moon, while all around her spiral the 8 lunar phases. Each month, the moon embodies the cycle of descent and return as it waxes to fullness, wanes to darkness, and begins to wax again. The moon is constantly changes and yet is utterly faithful in her changes. This cycle embodies one of the most profound teachings that nature has to offer us. Every month, the lunar cycle, which is mirrored in a woman's menstrual cycle, reminds us that one stage of life always succeeds another, and that times of darkness are always followed by renewal. Behind the woman, we see the Paleolithic relief of the great goddess of Lassel, which may be humankind's first calendar. With one hand, she points to her belly, hidden behind the woman's head, and with the other, she holds aloft a crescent-shaped horn incised with 13 notches, the number of lunations in a solar year. The woman is accompanied by those allies of the night, owl and wolf. Owl teaches us to navigate by our feelings, instinct, and intuition. Wolf teaches us to get in touch with our wildish nature and howl at that luminous moon. Salmon leaps up from the depths, bringing the wisdom of its own cycle of descent and return. This card indicates an awakening of powerful psychic abilities and learning to trust one's intuition. This may be frightening or confusing for those who have depended only on guidance of the clear light of rationality. The more familiar we become with the language of dreams, symbols, and myth, the more comfortable we can be with the gifts that the moon has to offer. Keep a dream journal, study the arts of divination and magic, and learn to touch your intuition. So that kind of sums up my feelings about the moon card, and how I feel like some of the traditional meanings that we are taught about the moon card are a bit misogynistic. When I was first learning tarot, I found quite offensive. And so, I think the thing about tarot is we come to our own way of looking at each card, and each card has its own meaning for us, not necessarily in sync with standard traditional meanings. Sometimes yes and sometimes no. Sometimes we read the cards completely intuitively and other times not. So it's a mix. But for me, the moon card is always more in line with what Joanna has to say about it. So peace and love, and may the moon shine upon you brightly, my friends.